Learning this evening we're learning the Teitzei of the Rebbe's Dvar Malchus Sikha on Parshas Teitzei, and we're learning in the Beit Knesset Chabad Tsfat. And tonight is Yom Chamishi Belayla li Yud Elul early Yom Shishi Yud Elul Tovshin Ayin. So, as always, we face an immense challenge to try and get over the amazing, it's a very demanding, very difficult sikha, but we'll do the best, and we'll jump in and we'll learn to swim. Hashem, so. Also upon him, just from the main points of the sikha, as we've been customary over the last weeks, to sum up a central theme of the sikha at the beginning of the class. So I think what we could say as one of the central themes is that the Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos that the matan shchorom shel tzadikim, right at the end of Perek Beis, that the giving of the reward of the tzadikim is only going to be liyosid lovei. That means to say at the time of the Gula and Be'ika at the time of the Tchiyas HaMetim. So the Rebbe develops in the Sikha that even though that is the case, but there's a certain din in the Torah which requires that if you have a faithful worker that he works for you, then you must pay him on the day that he does the work. What that would tend to imply, what that would tend to imply that the Abish has to pay reward even before we're going to get to Liyoset. And what's going to be Liyoset Lo? It will be massive. But even as it is now, we have to say that there's a certain trace of that great reward in the avodah that we do now. And as particularly as we're getting close to the Geula and close to the time that there's going to be the massive reward which will await the tzaddikim, then prior to the actual Knisa in the Geula, then it's even more, we are benefiting from the reward and the sachar, which HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to pay massively at the time of the Gula. We're already, as it were, partaking of that now. Yeah, that's and that's a din in the Torah which the Eibishter himself is following, and he's keeping his own dinim, and the Rebbe develops on this theme in all sorts of amazing angles, so it's one of the main themes, and that leads into a discussion when they get to the whole concept of Nesuyin, of marriage, and then the Rebbe gets on to the fact that Yud Aleph and Yud Gimel El are both dates of marriage, of Nesuyin, of the Rebbeim. The Rebbe Rashab was married on Yud Aleph Elul, and the Rebbe Rayatz, he was married on Yud Gimel Elul. And then 2 days after that is the day of the founding of Teitzei. And so the Rebbe also, of course, he refers very honorably to that. So it's a massive sikha that embraces many tremendous themes. And it gets down to the fact that Yeshiva's Teitzei was founded during the Shova Brachas of the Frierdiker Rebbe, and thus started in that very great moment of auguriousness of the Shevet Brachot of the Frierdiker Rebbe's Chasna, began this tremendous undertaking of Yeshiva Teitzei, and all that means, both for the individuals who learn there and for the whole club, Israel.
Or Tamimi.
Huh?
Or Tamimi.
Yeah, or Tamimi. Well, you're right. The Rebbe said that it was the Shleimus that taught it.
Oh,
It was the Shleimus that taught it. So I've been very well put order, that we must not forget that the Yeshiva Tamimi was an essential part of Tomchei Tamim, and that's what the Rebbe said to me in Yechidah, twice. So, with those basic, and Daniel Sosa got a part in that. So, and of course, not to forget Yankov Nashon. Yankov Nashon has a very big bite, very big portion. Okay, so now we begin. And the Rebbe tells us, just one second, if everybody just be patient for a second. I'll just wet my, I'll lubricate my throat a little bit.
Amen. You were, right?
B'chol Shabbos koirim b'Torah shtei parshiyot. Every Shabbos, a kavanah by day, then we read in the Torah two parshas. We read the full parsha at Shachris, Vasheni b'mincha, or Shnia, the second parsha we read at Mincha. L'moshu, b'Shabbazu koirim b'Shachris ki Teitzei, ve'ilu b'mincha matchilim et parsha ki Sovei. Habo, Achareho. And it says brought down in the Torah and the great poskim that they point out that the whole year runs that way, that each parsha, which is read in Shacharis on Shabbos in the Beis Knesset, is followed immediately by the next parsha that follows it at Mincha, but just less pesukim, only a few pesukim from the beginning of the parsha, but nonetheless, each parsha links into the other on the same Shabbos, that they, as it were, meet together on the same day, which is Shabbos Koyim. So that was the Rebbe. It follows from that, on this particular Shabbos, we'll read Ki Teitzei, and then we'll read Ki Sovei Habo Achareya. That comes immediately after. Ubdazu, says the Rebbe, of that particular fact, Movilo Isanu brings us the maskona, that brings us to the final opinion, that if two parshas nikroim ba'isa Shabbos, the two parshas are read on the same, they meet together on the same Shabbos, vada yeshnoi kesher bein shnei parshas. So there must be some very basic, and that's for sure there must be some very basic connection between the two parshas. So the Rebbe said, let's look at this Shabbos, and l'chora, we don't find that. L'chora, shnei parshas eilu, afuchim, achas me'ashniya, Teitzei and Tovei appear to be opposite themes, one to the other. Heim b'shmom, v'heim b'teichanom, both in the name and in the teichan of the parsha. Hashemas, let's take the names. Teitzei v'sovei, hinom shemas bali mashmois hafucha lechalutim. The two names to go out, and Tovei means to come in, to come in. They are two names which have an implication completely opposite one to the other, as understandable in simple terms. If I'm going out, then I have no question of it coming back in. I'm going out. The coming in as another opposite idea altogether. He said, Gama toichen shalahem shoyim. Also the inner content is very different. A toichen shal Teitzei uya yitzia l'melchama. If we look carefully in the pasuk, we see then that's not just going out, but it's going out to a state of war. Sha'oz gam im menatchim b'krav. Even if we are victorious in the battle, ain't sheket v'ain manuva. When people go to war, they're all, you know, tremendously tense and super excited and not in a state of rest or maneuver or sheket. And the Rebbe brings, there's a whole piece in the Rambam when you get to when you go out to war, how the soldiers are not allowed to have a soft heart. You know, it's forbidden to get fearful and everything, but you have to. So the Rambam describes how is that possible for a man. You know, he's going into a tremendously threatening situation. How can he not be anxious? So the Rambam says that the only way to do it is to take his mind entirely off to what's called Hesach Hadas in the Lashon of the Gemara. To take your mind, the Rambam reckons out not his wife, not his children, not his business, not his parnasa, not anything. He shouldn't think of anything in his own personal. He should close that out of his mind altogether, and he should focus only on what is the task now in front of him, and that he should go into it only with that determination that he's going to do his utmost to make sure that task is carried out to the best of his, the final best of his capabilities. So the Rebbe says that that's all very well, to use the expression, but it's a fight for a person. He has to struggle with himself, and he's not in a state of rest and feeling that he's coming into a restful situation. He's got to fight within himself to make sure that he carries it out in the most capable and proper way, which can be demanded of him. So that was the Rebbe, even if they're victorious, it's not a restful or a quiet situation. Be'ilu Parsha Tovei mityacheses davke lekanisa le'eretz Yisrael. In Parsha Tovei, it's described what you have to do when you come into Eretz Yisrael, and not only that, it's written the word v'yorashto, and you will conquer it and take it over, and you will inherit it literally, and you will sit down in it. You'll be in a state of rest. So that implies coming into something which is a nachala of yours, that he called an inherited thing, coming in, settling down, and then you bring fruits and bikurim and all sorts of good things, all which indicate a state of restful fulfillment on the part of somebody who's taken over something which is a basic divine gift to him. So therefore said the Rebbe, that's the entry to Eretz Yisrael. Mitoik manucha v'roiga. Roiga means the relaxation. Mitoik sheket v'simcha. Mitoik quietness and also simcha, because it's written at the end of the parsha, the whole parsha of Bikurim, it's written in the pasuk v'solmachta b'kol ha'toim. Asher nosan l'cho Hashem elokecha, samachta b'kol ha'toim indicates in a adequate abundance. You know, everything is there in the fullest and best way. So mensch is happy because he's at rest. Gam im nistakel al parshas, perspective shall avodas odam es boygai. Even if we look at the tzad avoda, you know, that's just in a simple term. But let's look at the avoda pnimias. So he says, Negala, we will come to the revelation, Parshas ki Teitzei le'milchama medaber al yetzias hanashama hayehudiyas L'stei hakrav. That's talking about the neshama of a yid in Ruchnias. If we take it, it's talking about the neshama of a yid going out into the world to fight the Yetzer Hara and all the things what the Yetzer Hara has produced and suggests to him in the world. Or outside of Yisrael, he's trying to be Mavarer, to purify the world. So that's a fight. Yeah, you got to fight with the good to bring it out and dismiss the Ra. But that's in beit Be'iroim and so on. So therefore said the Rebbe, that is Ha'olam v'Hagolas. It's not just Olam, but where do you need struggle with the good and the bad? Because we're still in Golas. There's still a matzav of Golas. When Mashiach will come and there'll be binyan beis hamikdash, it won't be necessary the whole inner Be'iroim. It'll come over and moving, b'pashta. So there was the Rebbe. The fact that it talks about going out to Milchama, well, that implies a unrestful and fighting situation. Al manas lezachik es aguf behoilam, and that's a fight. To purify the world is a big effort. It's a war, because the world produces all sorts of nisyanas and difficulties against it. Ve'ilu parsha ki sovei el ha'oreh. However, the parsha coming into Eretz Yisrael, oisekes davke b'avedas Hashem bezman boi b'nei Yisrael yesh v'malat mosom. He said that's talking about an aveda davke when all the Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael, and when all the Yidden were in Eretz Yisrael, the Beis Hamikdash was standing. So everything was in a different way altogether. Everything was what we call hakora, and recognition of Elokus. When you recognize the whole time Elokus and you're involved in it, then you're in a state of rest, and you're not fighting with anything. You're just basking and also revealing all the time Elokus. So that was when Yidden are Yishmalat Mosam Reguim V'Shketim, then they're, how do you call it? They're relaxed and they're in a state of quietness and rest. Bisman Beis Hamikdash. And that's what the Rebbe's mother, the Beis Hamikdash, had this tremendous effect that it brought Gilei Elokus, or Shokanti B'Sei Chom, that there was Megala Elokus in every Yid and in the whole Sviva, and that had a tremendous effect. There were 10 miracles every day in the Beis Hamikdash. So he came to Jerusalem and he saw Elokus, Kishem Shebo, Leroy, Shkak Bo Leroy, a person came and he saw Elokus in the Beis Hamikdash. Well, that's all productive of a restful situation. So that is the opposite of Kisei Telemil Choma, also Baved Ruchniah. So that the two parshas have to have some sort of connection, but at first glance, they seem to be very, very different in their whole implication, both Begashmias, Kipshutei, and in Avedas Hashem. Akushya Mishchazeches Yoita. The Rebbe says that the kasha gets even stronger, Bishchashe Be'uvda Shekeyoim. כאשר קוראים מספר כיסובי אל האורץ, מסכוונים בעיקר לכניסה לארץ ישראל בגאולה המידס והשלמה. So here the Rebbe puts in a very interesting etiquette, the Rebbe's quet. This is the etiquette, the Chabad Rebbe quet. And the Rebbe said nowadays, when we read the Parsha, and we're holding so close to the Gula, and everybody's longing so much for the Gula. When we read the Parsha, the Hoya Kisove and the Horetz, what are all of us meaning, and what do we all think, and what do we all understand that that's implying? That we're coming in there at Yisrael with Melech HaMashiach, with the Gula Shleiman. So therefore says the Rebbe, Mishkavnim Be'iger, we have in mind, and we are stirred to think that we're going into Eretz Yisrael, but Gula Midas about a Shleima. What do you say there in England? Well, we're on our way. So I met somebody today, and you remember Mordechai? I also said to Mordechai, it's written in Likutei Torah, the Moshel of Melech B'Sodeh. It's when everybody gets very informal, beautiful touch with the Melech B'Sodeh, and then it's written, U'b'hoil choi ha'ira kulam hoilchim acharov. It's written, the Alter Rebbe writes, that when the king's greeted everybody, he's met everybody nicely, and he smiled at everyone, then he begins his way back to the city. So it's written that everybody follows him. Everybody is drawn after him and follows him. So that's the union of the Gula Shlema. We're all drawn after the Rebbe. The Rebbe is so filled us. But the message of Mashiach, when we say Ki Sovi al Ma'oret, oh yeah, we're following the king. We're going to the throne. So they said, Be'im Kain, says the Rebbe, Meduba Kan, B'shnei Tkuva Shoinus L'chalutin. Im Kain, this is two different types of situations, or periods, or eras in the Jewish life altogether. Parsha Ki Teitzei Medaber al Aveidosei Shel HaYehudi B'zman Hazeh. Yeah, he's going out, and there's still a war, there's still in the Shainas, and still Berurim, and well, that's the union of how do you call it, the Golas. And the union for the Golas are this man hazeh, ve'ilo pasha ki sovi, oisekes b'kabolas hasachar b'geula. Oh, here the Rebbe makes a very important, like, sort of switch in the argument. And that is, the Rebbe said like this: if it's true, and the Yemen said that Pasha Kisove is telling us of the going in to Eretz Yisrael B'zman Gula, that's the Ika Hadgosha. So if we learn Pirkei Avos, and it's interesting, the Rebbe brings down that we read, we learn Pirkei Avos now before Rosh Hashanah. And he said that on this particular Shabbos, they were learning Perik Rishon V'Sheni. I'm a little bit out of gear with that. I'm not sure what Parshas are we learning this Shabbos.
Sheni.
2 and 3, just two. Yeah, we'll double up a bit later down the line. But the Rebbe said here that they were learning Parsha 1, Perik Aleph and Beit. That's what he writes here inside the Sikha. So the end of Perik Beis, at the end of Perik Beis, it's written, V'dolcho shematan schornim shel tzadikim hu liyosid lovei. Liyosid lovei means after Moshiach and after Tchias HaMeisim, but the tzadikim, v'amei kulam tzadikim, alle yidna tzadikim, or the matan schar, the Ike giving a reward for all the work that's been done, is going to be at that time. If that's the case, that the main Sachar, whatever will be that form of Sachar, the Alter Rebbe hints there's a very high Sachar that we really, it's hard for us to picture exactly how great it will be. That will be given after Tchias HaMeisim, Be'ikar. Azim Kain, when we read Parsha Kisove, and we're looking through Parsha Kisove at the Gula Shlema, and that's what we assume, as Im Kain, when the Gula Shlema will be here, then Tchias HaMeisim will follow, and then there'll be the Matan Schar. So to a certain extent, when we read Parsha Kisove, we're looking into the era of Sachar, of reward. And to a certain extent, it makes sense even in simple terms. I'm going to come into Eretz Yisrael, and I'm going to inherit it, and I'm going to have a nachla, and all the Yidden are going to have their own place, and everybody's going to have beautiful trees, and you're going to bring bikurim, and it's all going to be, how do you call it, an ideal world. So that's like a form of a me'ain of what's the ultimate sachar of the Yosef Lord. However, says the Rebbe, if we go this further step, then we see that really Pasha Kisove is hinting at this amazing sachar that's going to be after, that's written at the end of Perek Beit. So we're learning Perek Beit this week, right? We learned Perek Aleph last week. That's how I was holding. Yeah. So we're going to learn what the Rebbe refers to, the Matan Schoren Shel Tzadikim Hu Liyosid Lovi. So the Rebbe says, Im Kain, it follows that Parsha Kisove is like the of a reward. So he says, Kach Gam, B'shnei Pirchei Ovid, Shekonim B'Shabbat Zu, that was what they were reading then. He said, A Perek Rishon Oishe B'Avidosha Yehudi B'Limud Torah. The first Parsha, the first Perek is Moshe Kibul Torah Misinai. And then it's written, V'hamidu Talmidim Harbe. You have to stand up a lot of Talmidim, you have to bring in. And I once, I had that before from the Rebbe. The Rebbe wrote me a note once in reference to me. And he said that if all yeshivas have to do that, then how much more so Tom Chitmim has to do it? He said you have to be busy to bring in a lot of Talmidim. So we tried hard. It was a very difficult fight, but we brought as many Talmidim as we could. And the Rebbe wrote, Hamidu Talmidim out. So what do we see from that? We see that you've got to learn, but not only you've got to learn, but you've got to give over to others. You've got to make sure that you have Talmidim, and in that guva, that you have a lot. So that means that you're not just learning, but you're, as it were, you're giving, you're learning, and you're pouring forth at the same time. So the Rebbe, that's a voida, bisman hazeh. Ve'ilo, he said, a perek hasheni, or he sekes b'kobolos ha'sachar. And that, when is that going to be? Davke b'yula. V'da shematan schoren shel tzadikim liyosid lovei. The Rebbe says, da, the word da, is also in Russian to know for sure, not to stump, but to be really bound up in it, really makusha. So the Rebbe said that they are looking forward to the sachar of Liyosid Love. It has to be that you're da. Why does the Tana say da? He could have said that's the case. Why did he put in the word da? In order to make you makusha and bound up in the matter, that you should be, I remember once that the Rebbe said, by a Fabringen, the Rebbe said that in English, he said that he is obsessed with the Geula. Yeah, that's what he said, that in the English, perhaps they would say about me that I am obsessed with the Geula. Yeah. In other words, da, it means you got to get into it, you got to be so adequate, you got to be obsessed by it. So that was the Rebbe, Keitzad Yelchu Shnehem Yachad. Im Kain, how do these two things how does it all go together? It's so opposite in yon. Mikach, ניתן להבין, שפרשת כי-סובי, הנקרא סליח הפרשת כי-תeitzei, מלמדת בעצם שגם העבודה כאש בעולם כי-תeitzei, צריכה להיות במנוחה ורוגע כי-סובי. Here's where we're going to come to the sort of quote. The Rebbe said, the fact that they do come together, then they have to reveal and unite one to the other. You know, they have to come to terms. So the Rebbe says, what is the most likely way that they come to terms is that even though you're doing Teitzei, you're busy still with the Aveda of the end of the Golas, but nonetheless, Kisove is united with it, which means that even though you're busy with the Bureau of the end of the Golas, you got to do it in a way where you're already holding by the Menucha, and later he's going to say even the Sachar. You're holding by the Menucha and the Sachar of Liyosid. In other words, that even though you're still busy with the fight, you got to do the fight in a ruhig way, and you've got all the koichas of the Kisove inside. Yeah, in other words, that Davki now, at the end of the whole fight, at the end of the whole Golas, we're going to fight a big fight, but we do it in a very, very different and restful way, and therefore it's blessed with more Hatzlacha, because we got the Kisove inside the Teitzei, and therefore we're working out of, how do you call it, elevation, and I might even say inspiration of the Leosid Love inside what we're doing with the Teitzei. Mamish Pilipla. So the Rebbe says, Yosemite, even more than that. He said, Gam kasher on oivdim es Hashem bezman hagolah. Even though we're still serving Hashem and it's still inside the zman hagolas, on ukvar zoikim litoim min hasachar. Oh, not just that we got the rigor of coming in to something tremendous like the Geula, but we're also going to get the Adikad. We're going to get the mamashes of the Sachar. We're also going to get the actual reward also in the last moments. So the Golas, we're also going to get this. Belokain, he said, Koine beprekiyoviz shada. Yeah, you have to know. Yekva aksho targish v'titom. Das, we said, means a big involvement that you're already feeling and you're tasting. Yeah, as matan schoren shol tzadikim liyosid love. In other words, that you're holding now in such a way that you're already benefiting from the actual sachar that's going to be liyosid love. And Sportan in ניתן, that's an amazing sachar. What's actually going to be after Tchia is amazing. The matan schoren shol tzadikim. That's a tremendous sachar. We're already going to be benefiting from that now, even though we're still doing Teitzei, but we've already got the Kisove, including the sachar, not just the matzah of roga, but the in of sachar. Nakudazu says the Rebbe, the truth of the matter is, he says that particular Nakuda appears in the Parsha Teitzei Atzma. It's written in the Parsha itself. B'tzivui Hashem, that if you're a puyo, and you hire yourself to a boss to work. The way it used to be done in those days was that you hired yourself on a daily basis. Each day you had to report if you wanted to work and continue working, and then you showed up the next day. And the boss has to pay you, and that's what's written in the Torah, he's got to pay you at the end of that day. He shouldn't let you go away from the work without having given you something. Yeah. There's a whole story about the Rizal, Spotan and the Shara Mitzvahs. The whole story about the Rizal, that he once hired some workers, a couple of workers to do something in his house or his chotzer or something like that, and they worked. But then it came the afternoon, and he made a cheshbon, and he realized he didn't have enough money to pay their mashkoret for that day, and he would have to tell them to wait. So he said, I'm not going to do that b'shum even. And he took the Rabbeinu Chaim Vital, and they went out to some guy that was like in the market, and he had a bit of a business, and they borrowed money. Assumed that the Arizal borrowed quite a nice sum of money, and he went back and gave it to the poor. He didn't want to send them home one day without paying them in the day that they worked. Yeah, it's a whole story over there. There's a din that in that day that he works for you, before he goes home, you got to pay him. So the Rebbe said, Im Kain, yeah, but you Hashem lisais losais lapoyo eschore ba'isha yom boyu siyem yeah lavor. And that means every day you gotta give him at the end of each day. Kivin says it follows Lefize that there's a din from b'yomai titain Schorei. That's the way it's written in the Torah. So just by the way, the Rosh Tevas of those three words, B'yomo, Titan, Schorei, Shabbat. So the Rizal, it's written in the Kisvei Rizal, that if the whole week you do what you're supposed to do, and you work, and you pray, and you do everything to the best of your ability, then on Shabbos, the Eibishter pays you a special schar. And what is the schar? That you have an aliyah, ruchnias on Shabbos, much more than what you usually do. And that's what we call Einik Shabbos. Although Einik Shabbos doesn't mean eating a huge piece of red meat or something. It could possibly also mean that, but that's not exactly what it means here. It means that you get paid a tremendous reward that you yourself don't realize where this is all coming from. And that's beyond my Titzei. Anyway, that's just for good measure. I put that in. But Parshas Adin is somebody works for you. You got to pay him before he goes home on that day. So he said the Eibishter has to keep that in. That since we're working now, and we're working towards, we're working very specially because we're near the end of the Golas. So the Eibishter has to pay us a certain amount of that reward he's going to give Liacha Tchias HaMeis. B'yomai Titan Schorei, which means that what you're going to be waiting for after Tchias HaMeis, that's going to be massive. Huge, unbelievable, like the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed. We don't really know how great it's going to be. But now, even in the matzah with the Golas, and we're looking forward to the Geulah, the Eibus is going to be paying part of that schar, and not only he's going to be paying, he's mechuyev. he has been mitchayev to give you part of that schar already. But that's pretty amazing stuff. So now, the rest of the Sikha deals with how does this all, how do we get this all worked out? How does it come together? So the Rebbe says, B'ktei lahovin zois heitu, oleinu lahaktim es divrei Rashi, ala milim, we have to first of all proceed and go back and learn what Rashi says in the first sentence that he writes right at the beginning of the Parsha, and it's written that ki Teitzei la-milchama al oyevecha. Yeah, Rashi writes shebemilchemes hareshus hakosav medaber. Milchemes hareshus. So what is a milchemes hareshus? Does everybody realize what a milchemes hareshus is? Milchemes hareshus means a war that you're not mechuyev in. When you go out to fight a Molech, then Ali Yidna Mechuyev, because that's what we call a Milchemes Choiva. It's a Milchemes Mitzvah. That Ali Yidna Mechuyev to take part. The conquering of the 7 nations in Eretz Yisrael, when Yidden came in with Yeshua into Eretz Yisrael, was also a mitzvah on everybody. There was a Milchemes Mitzvah, a Milchemes Choiva. Milchemes Hareshus means that Yidden decide on their own to go out and conquer more and make Eretz Yisrael bigger than what it is. And so they're not mechuyev, but they have decided that they want to go out and conquer a certain area. And that's called a Milchemes Hareshus. Nobody has obliged them to do that, but they want to do it, and the war is not an obligatory war. So the Rebbe says, L'choira eich zachem loima sha'avodas Hashem bo'ilam hi reshus. If that's referring, like we learned, to avodas Hashem in the world, how come Rashi says that that's reshus? Mainly in simple pshat, but we know that Rashi also takes into account the spiritual aspect. So how come the Rashi says it's reshus? Yeah, he said, Haloya Odom Chayim. A man is mechuyev lehi lochem. The Eibus sent you down in the world And he doesn't leave it up to you if you're going to fight your nefesh apam years or purify the world. That's a chiyuv, ala yidna mechuyuv, from Mount Sinai. So what does Rashi mean by saying that aspect of Jewish life is a reshut? He said the Rebbe is chayav li'achim l'zachis kuvei, umikan, said the Rebbe, it's kuvei v'eso elam shesobivei, also the whole world, he's got to purify. Well, that's part of his obligation of Matan Torah as a Yid. That's what he's obliged to. The Rebbe said, Mikan, from that it would appear, from that point, in that situation, it would appear שגם העניין של שכר על העבודה של בני ישראל אינו מובן. The Rebbe said, if we're going to say that the whole inyan is an obligation, that's what we have to do, and that's what we were born for. As he came, what sort of schar is due? If you're an eved, the Muslim, and you're mechuyev to your master, he doesn't pay you schar. He just maybe gives you what you need, but he doesn't pay you any reward. So the Rebbe said, if we're going to say that we're born in the world and to purify and work at the world is our obligation, then what's b'klal is the whole idea of schar. He said the whole idea of schar is not understood. Kasher meduva b'poyel, if we take a worker that he hires himself, shebi'choltoi la'avoid, bi'cholto shaloi la'avoid, he hired himself out, and he could work or he couldn't work, and therefore it's due to him a schar. Magia loi schar al kach shehu machlit lavo, he decided to work for the balabas, that's due a schar. He said, however, we are not po'alim that have hired ourselves out. That's something that's dependent in the person himself. We're avadim. And the Avish said in Parshas Teitzei, after Matan Torah, the Avish says that Bnei Yisrael avadai heim, they are my servant. So if we're servants, then it's not you any schar for what we do. We're just servants. If we were po'alim, then it would be. But we're not po'alim. So therefore the Rebbe says, Aval yeved yesh chayiv lavod, yes Rabbi, lo magia sachar. The whole idea of sachar is not due to him. He said, v'haloi b'nei Yisrael chayovim laved es HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kenema ki li b'nei Yisrael avodim heim. Ve'ilu ve'alma magia haschar. Why are we talking about schar the whole time? We're just simple avodim. If we're simple avodim, that's not due to any schar. And therefore, the Rebbe brings down that the avodah of a yid in this world, the chora, doesn't have any trace of schar connected with it. The Gemara says in Masechta Eruvin that hayom la soisom ulamocher lekabel schorim. Maybe in Olam Haba or something like that, you'll get a sachar. Oh, but there's no sachar in this world. So what's the inyan of biyom titain schorim? The Avish has to pay you for what you're doing on a daily basis. We're not workers for him. We are servants. And then the Rebbe brings down the Gemara at the end of Masechta Chulin, where the Gemara says that the reward for any mitzvah in this world doesn't exist. It's written by Chabad Tsfat, Laman Yarichu Yamaika, and the Gemara says that's talking about Leosid Love, that's talking about after the Gula. Oh, it's not talking about now. In other words, that even the mitzvahs that it's written, a sachar, well, that sachar is not due in this world for what you're doing now. That'll be later, the Avish will pay Gafni outside this world altogether. So if that's the case, then why would there be a chiyuv when the Eibishter be yomei titan scholai? He has to pay you now immediately after you finish, as it were, a day's work or a mitzvah or whatever would be the unit. He doesn't have to pay you anything, and that's what he's going to give you. I said, Lovi, that's his decision. You're not due anything. You're an Eved. So how does he have to pay you? B'yomai titain, suchorem. So Rebbe said the Rebbe, in order to understand that, that's why we have to have, that Rashi says, that the whole thing is a reshut. The whole thing is a reshut. And what does reshut mean? That Kila didn't let themselves into it on their own, as it were, decision. And if they let themselves in it on their own decision, then it's due a reward. But how do they let it on their own decision? They're obliged, they're avodim. So how come they let themselves in on their own decision? And how come Rashi says that reshut, that the whole struggle in the world is a reshut? That's not a reshut. You're obliged anyway. So that's basically the question. So the Rebbe says, "Atshuva lekach tmuna b'loshen haposi ki teitzei lemilchama." It's hidden in the word that you will go out into war. So how come it's hidden in the fact you go out into war? So the Rebbe says that a neshama is tremendously high source. And what we understand to be the source of the neshama in Atzilas, that's only begiluim shelo ilma. But the real source of neshamas is chel chelakam email. They are mamish, to use an expression, yidna are a chip of the old block, to use the expression. They're a piece, mamish, of Atzma Saints of himself. And that's what the neshamas are. How that works, that's another story, but that's the Matthias. So the Rebbe says, Azim Kain, they are incomparably beyond the world. And they could and they should be able to attain that they don't have anything to do with the world. They don't know anything about it. You know? They're tremendously high beyond the whole Ishtalshel. They don't have any shaykhs with Ishtalshel. So who's telling them to go out? They're complete. If they had a shaykh to the worlds and to Ishtalshel, so then the Abish could say, listen, you guys are part of this whole deal, get down and make a bit of a war down there and make some water out of it. Oh, but really they're incomparably beyond it altogether. So that would Yidden, go down, nonetheless into Ishtalshel, and they take on the war, they as it were make that decision themselves. That's a tremendous chiddush what the Rebbe says. They as it were, that is their rotten and their decision. So he said, how do I know that? What do you mean? The Eivishter forces them to go down. So he said there's a medrash the Rebbe brings down, and it's well known, it's brought down in all the big Hemshayim or the Rabbeim, that when the Eivishter came to create the world, he asked an Eitzah. He literally, how do you call it, who ityayet, how do you say it, who nimloch. That's it's called in the lesson of the Medrash, b'mi nimloch. For example, if you take an Eitzah with your wife or something, that's called the Himalaya, that's called nimloch. However, the Eibishter asked somebody, should he create the world or should he not? Who was it?
Tzadikim.
Who did he ask?
Tzadikim.
Shtickman?
Tzadikim.
Yeah. Who is Tzadikim? Who is Tzadikim? Yidden.
Am Yisrael.
Yidden. All Yidden are Tzadikim. However, he asked the Neshama, the Eibishter came along, and he asked the Neshamas, should he really create the world or not? You're more of a machut than what you think. You have more power than what you think. it's so the Eibishter asked the Neshama, what did the Neshama say? They said, they said, go ahead. Had the Eibishter, it's mashma. There's a huge ariga from the Rebbe Hashem about it. Dovrei Sama Gimel, there's a whole big ariga. That who really decided that there's going to be this whole war? Who set up the situation that ultimately there would be this whole war? It was Yidden. Yidden, they set up the situation. The Eibishter asked them, and they said, yeah, Idarim Kain, that they're the ones who actually fixed that there be this whole situation where there's a war. That they were the ones that decided it, not the Eibishter. Therefore, they're coming down into the whole thing is what you might call, it's their own doing. It's their own, it's an amazing point. Is that really, Yidden, as it were, they are coming down into a whole deal, what they decided to do. If they decided to do it, then they're Rishus. That's called Rishus. If that's Rishus, then in that particular Madrega, they are not Avodim. You follow? In that particular level, they're not Avodim, but they're like, how do you call it, workers, or even higher than workers. They're people that are due to being paid for the whole thing. It's all their idea. Since that's the case, there's a certain level of Yidden that is higher than the whole world, it's higher than the whole thing of Avodim and all that sort of thing, that they are, like as it were, apart from being Avodim. That's the way they are down in this world, and that's the way they, as it were, have accepted from the Eibishter that Ani lo nivreisi ela l'sham mishuskin. I was created over them, I don't want anything, and I don't want any rewards or anything, I'm just an ever. But since I got myself into that whole situation, then there's a certain level in me which it does, as it were, have a due to get reward. That reward, says the Tan in Pirkei Avos, you have to wait till after Tchiyat Samaitin. Then you're going to get it. So it comes along the Tana, comes along the river, and he says, but the Pasuk says, V'yomei titan schara, that you have to give him for every period that he was, you have to give him something. Which means that what you're going to get, Leosid Lovi, in a massive way, is due to you, even in your everyday Avodah, it's due to you, and especially that, like we said, when we read this whole parsha, Kisove, how do we really take it? We take it as referring to the Gula slave. Him came a holding mamish, came up by what the Tana says anyway. If we get, as it were, a higher, we're paid a more intense payment than would have been generations ago. So the Rebbe said, how does that work? Yeah. What way do we get paid, as it were? What's going to be Lioset Love? So the Rebbe says a very amazing idea. Unfortunately, I'm sort of running a bit out of fuel. I'm going to give it over to you, just the main point. And that's like this. The Rebbe says that the reward that you're going to get, what is it? How does it express itself? So he said, if you look in Perik Lamed in Tanya, he said the Alter Rebbe says that Shchar mitzvah, that the Shchar for a mitzvah is the mitzvah itself. In other words, not that the Shchar of the mitzvah means that I get to do another mitzvah. Now what it means is that the Shchar of the mitzvah is in the mitzvah itself. So the Rebbe said, what does that mean? What does it mean that the Shchar from the mitzvah is in the mitzvah itself? What is the pshat? The Rebbe said, what do you achieve through doing a a mitzvah. Be careful, because this is the pitfall. What do you achieve by doing a mitzvah? So the Rebbe, you bring down Elokus into the world that wasn't there before. You are Megale Ainian Etzem Elokus into the world which hasn't been there before. Right? So the Rebbe said that's the biggest schar that you could possibly have. And when you do a mitzvah, the Abus is already paying you, but you're my titan schore, he's giving you the sechar for you having done the mitzvah. And next, what is the answer? Do another mitzvah and you get another one. And so the Alter Rebbe says in Parshas in the Teitzei, it's like a guy's got a safe and he keeps putting into his safe, you know, all these wonders, but he doesn't actually see them right now. So the Rebbe said, what does that matter? But he knows that he's got inside the safe, that he's filled it up with huge riches. And if he will just do another mitzvah, the Rambam says that's enough to bring the whole Gula. So we've really got the ability to open our safes anytime we want, which means that the schar of the mitzvah is what the mitzvah itself can do. Schar mitzvah, which means that if you only wake up to what's really going on, then you realize that right now we bring down Etzem Ein Sof into the world, and that's the Sakar of Lios Elohim. What's happening with it? You're putting it away in the safe, right? The Alter Rebbe said. So the Rebbe says that's not a problem. You have brought it down into the world, and you have it in your own personal safe. And he said the best way to open it is the Rambam's way, to do one more mitzvah, and you will swing the whole world, and then Mashiach, when he will come, and then you'll open up the safe and you'll have it all with tremendous revelation. Even that the difference between getting the reward now and getting it Leosid is only opening the safe and bringing it out. But in other words, you've got it. You got it in your safe. And Omer said, that's the most amazing principle. And then he goes even further, and he says that a Yid, since he is L'maylam, he calls Seder Ishtalshalas, then he's from the level that the Eibusha was before the world was created, Hu Levadehu V'Einzu, and the Alter Rebbe says in Tanya, in chapter 20 and 21, that even after the world's created, that's the truth. So that even when you come down into this world, as a neshama coming into the world, you're really bringing with you the air of the Einoid mill, that is really not Matzia. So that when you come into the world, you've already got a trace of the reward that you're supposed to get anyway. You already have it inside your pocket when you come down into the world. And the Rebbe said, what do you get from that? He said, how would you just imagine if you didn't have a lot of koya, a lot of adequate assistance, what you would be like in this world? Yeah, you would just fall into all the traps and all the tivers and all the, you would be just what's called in Yiddish a parfiash. You would just be a burnt out piece of ash. You'd be finished. What gives you that power to stand in the whole test of being in the world and to actually do all the Aveda? In fact, that you bring with you the fact that Hu Levadi Hu V'Einzu, because you're beyond the whole Ishtalshalas, and you know about that. Only you and the Eibusha know just how powerful that is. The Hu Levadi Hu V'Einzu. So when you come down into the world, you've already got part of the Sakar working in you right from the very first moment. And the Rebbe gives a dogma of that. He said, where do we see that? He said, when you wake up in the morning, when you wake up in the morning, you haven't slept enough, or who knows, you're not in a good mood, yeah? all of a sudden you have to say Moida Ani. So the Rebbe said, Berega, that you say Moida Ani Lefanelcha, then you and the Eibishter get together Be'eter. So the Rebbe said, what gives you that koyach to say Moida Ani? In effect, that before you came down into the world, you knew that Hu Levade Hu Vein Zelose more than any other created being. And that gives you the power to say Moida Ani. That's what the Rebbe says. And then he brings a big long footnote about the greatness of Moida Ani and the whole Meister. So when you say Moida Ani in the morning, you're really drawing on the power that you have as being beyond the whole creation. Therefore Hashem asked you, was it worth doing the whole thing? You bring that level down into your life, and you're able to say it with all the shloch problems of Metallah Zachem, you're able to say Moida Ani. So I thought that was pretty powerful. So, I'm not leaving it with that, because the Sikha says you got to bring Moshiach, Papa, Mamis. You mustn't accept any other. And you don't have the power, because you can say Moida Ani. So you got to say to the Eibishter, we want Moshiach now. We want the Gilui of the safe. We want to open the safe right away. We want to cash on the table, right now. That's how the Rebbe. Then he said, Tomchei Tmim, all the people learn Tomchei Tmim. Really, their whole aim is to bring the Yosef Love, and therefore we see the amazing things that Tomchei Tmim achieved. And it's just as Proteus. Today, I went to lay down for a while, but I was feeling very tired. So I just closed my eyes and I put my hand up on the shelf of my Sforim. Whatever sefer will come out, that's what I'll look at before I close my eyes. So you know what I pulled out? Reb Foli Khan wrote a sefer called Libavitch V'Chayaleho. Libavitch V'Chayaleho, who's seen the sefer? He writes all about the original Tmimim in Lubavitch and the time of the Rebbe Rashab. Lubavitch V'Chayaleho. It's a famous, not the Shmoyz was Zipporim. He wrote a sefer called Shmoyz Zipporim, but he wrote a special sefer, So I tapped my eyes, Mama jumped out, because the Rebbe talks about Tomchei Tmim in the Sikha. So you know what I saw? The Rebbe Philip he writes the Rebbe Poli to Beit as part of the Fabringer. He writes there that there was a famous mashpia in the Bavitch. He was called Reb Chanoch Handel, forgotten his surname, Chanoch Handel, and he was one of the big mashpiyim. He was already ayid, Azokim. And he heard by a Fabringer, the Rebbe Rashab, that the Rebbe Rashab said that whenever you're faced in the world with anything that has to do with Gashmias of the world, then you should say the word Favos. What Favos in Yiddish means why. So everybody couldn't figure what why. So the Rebbe Rashab said you have to say, why do I need that? Who says, why? Maybe I don't really need that, So if you don't really need it, forget it. I'll see you for something better. So this Chanoch Handel, he took that tremendously seriously, and he started saying Favos about everything in his life. He would stop for a moment. He said, why? Who said? Maybe so in the end, he wasted. He never. His wife went crazy of the whole. Everything. He said, "What do we need it for?" So it came over Rosham. He had to write a pidyon. Everybody wrote a pidyon, to the Rebbe, and you asked for things that you wanted. So he wrote a sentence And then he said, why? Why do I really need this? Maybe I don't really need it. So he crossed out everything. And the whole picture was just lines that were written and then crossed out. So he gave the picture to the governor, and the governor said he's sorry, he can't give the revealed picture. It's all crossed out. So he said, okay, don't give the river my pigeon. I'll go to the oil and I'll pray over there. And I'll just say. So he gets into the oil and he says to the Teitzei and the Reverend Rush, listen, I can't talk anymore because as soon as I say something, I have a problem. Do I really need it or do I not? So listen, Rebbes, and he pointed to them. He said, you look after the show. He said, you run the whole show. I don't know what I need and what I don't need. I'm no longer able to decide. So he said, you guys run the show. I'm putting myself in your hands. You guys look after me. I thought it was a very beautiful story. And it's most connected with things. And the only thing is that don't ask too much why, take it easy. That's why I closed my eyes and I pulled that off and so I said.
Teitzei lemilchama. When you go out to war, the next pasuk is Isha Yafas Toa, the beautiful blonde shiksa, captain. Is she a reward or a punishment? What does Hasidus have to say about this?
Ultimately, it's a punishment. Because ultimately it doesn't work out good. And therefore Rashi brings it, even if you do marry her and everything's fine, you have children, but the children won't turn out good. That's what Rashi brings. You follow? So ultimately, you have to be very careful to ask for what, why.
Fados.
I was really, my eyes jumped out when I read that story.
חיים.
Just shows you there were some Yidden that took the rivers, they took them very literally, whatever they heard from their rivers had occurred. Straight off the press, that's it. For was. Anyway.
I read your piece.
What was the subject?
I read your piece.
On Adolf Eichmann and Torah. What do you think of the Jewish agency in World War II?
I read something that alluded. Previously I had read something that alluded to that, but it seemed like they didn't want to go into it. It was too painful. But you went into it.
Oh yeah.
There you go.
באמריקה לא פה, או בצפת, זה משבת, זה תואמי החיים דחו. זה חתוך. אינם משווה... ביי, ביי. יבל.
גישה שורה מהבן שלך, הכיתה שלו לא מצווה.
עכשיו הייתי שם, אתה נותר לך?
כן?
לא ראית אותי? נכנסתי, אמרתי לו, מזל טוב עליו.
ישבתי שם.
I'm passing. All right.
To the other rabbi,
Who's it called?
Chaim.
Chime.
What do you want to say to Chaim? What do you want to say to Chaim?
La. La.
So look, I always found it very mind-boggling at the end of Parshas Teitzei, which, let's not forget, it's already pretty much halfway through Elul. We're already deep into all the Inyanim Vanila Deidi V'Deidi Li. But the Rebbe said that's, even in the Sikha, the Rebbe said that's the Sachar, that's the work and the Sachar. Ani L'Doidi means I got to do the work. The Doidi Li means the Rebbe is prepared to pay. He's prepared to pay Sachar. Of Amela, you got killed the whole picture in the Etzemina of El. You've already got the Tashlum Schar, or Befatet, like the Rebbe said, we're looking forward now to going into the Gula. So we've got and all of a sudden what happens at the end of Parshas Teitzei with all the Gevaldik Inyanim, which are Mavua in the Parsha, you got the Shavua Hakan, and you got Maiko, you know, Kisiv Nebayas, Bayas Chodev, and the guns. And all of a sudden, what is it? Zeicha, Zacher, Asol Acham, right at the end. Ayina Fana Amor. So we've got to be tremendously careful that we don't get cooled off. How do you call it? Davki, if you're in a state of arousal and you've lived through a whole half of El, and you're into a parsha like Teitzei, it's very easy in a delicate way for something to sort of switch and sort of cool things off a bit, you know. All of a sudden somebody would come up with a hamtua and they'll say, listen, but why didn't you think about this? Or what do you say about this? Or, you know, there seems to be this and this difficulty, it doesn't quite fit, you know. The world doesn't look quite that way, you know. And look at all the crazy things that happen, and, you know, small little things, you know.
Favus.
or for what? Is therefore, you got to be tremendously aware of the necessity to zocher eisha's timche zecher amalek. I feel a thing which is only zecher. It's not mamish. Yeah, amalek in all his power, but it's a zecher of an amalek. It's like a inner which can bring to. We're going to be very, very guarded in ourselves. I remember when I first got married in Bnei Brak, we lived near, not far, he was almost a neighbor, the old Rebbe of Chernobyl, he was like a neighbor of ours. Sometimes you can learn a lot of things. You can learn from other Yidden. So what they used to do, whenever they bought new shoes for their kids, they used to crutch on the bottom of the shoe the word Amalek. So that when the kid walked on the shoe, gradually he was wiping out the name of Amalek. Whenever they bought a new pair of shoes or sandals for the kid, they used to crutch. Amalek, and whenever he ran or he jumped or he moved or he walked, he was gradually wiping out the name Amalek. And it really, I really was very impressed. I was very taken with that. So we also got to do that. Anything that's even just a crutch, it's just but you got to walk on it, you got to rub it off, and you got to run it off by running and moving swiftly like children do in the ways of Hashem, and not allow small things to be maval. And it's mekubal from the Baal Shem Tov that the main Indian of Amalek in day-to-day life is the infant cars, anger. We have to be, and the Rizal says that if you get angry, it takes weeks for your neshama to come back. You drive your own neshama out. Yeah. So we've got to be tremendously careful at all. And so what's in it, cars? Cars comes from Gaiva. Because you hold that you're very important, how come somebody, how come somebody didn't look after your cover? And he made you angry at a time. He doesn't realize just what an important entity you really are. And therefore you get angry because you believe that you are very important. And that leads us to anger. And that whole Indian of Gaiva, that's Amalek. That's the emes assured, the whole cooling down and the whole career. But Amalek, because I'm all locked up in my own importance. And therefore, if something doesn't quite add up with my seichel, it doesn't add up with my seichel. That's me talking, In Mamela, you think, well, maybe we'll put it off to another time, I'll think it over more, I'll consider the matter, I'll learn it inside better, that's an issue. We have to be, even for an absolute simplicity. And that's why I was very impressed with that Maisa, that I saw the Rebbe Rashab said a word. He said, you have to ask yourself why. And he had this very learned, he was a very learned person. He was tremendously respected. He was a mashpia, already an elderly man as well. And he heard one word from the Rebbe, and all of a sudden his whole life changed, and he started asking, Bernard, what do I need this for? Everything. He asked the question, why? About everything that occurred. But that simplicity, that ability to take everything with a pashtus, and to know that what the Rebbe says, that's what he means. Even though sometimes, like in this amazing Sikha, it comes in a lavush, a very profound understanding, a very deep concept, very deep. Or the ultimate message is basically a pretty simple one when you really, you get down and you think systematically into the whole thing. You can see it's a pretty simple message, basically. So you have to take that simply. Whatever the Rebbe said, that's what he meant. And whatever he meant, that's what he says. And we're going to take it with absolute simplicity, then you beat a molly. Yeah? Then you wear a molly down, not he wears you down. You walk him off your shoe. But if you say, I have to think about this, I gotta relearn it and re-study it. That's not good. If you will take it with a simplicity, Hashem will help you to understand it. Then you'll understand the real pshat. Yeah. And it's brought down in siddhas, and I heard from my mashpia on several occasions, it's written in siddhas that if you do this and you do that, then you have ahava, and you have yira, and you have gilea, yechida, and you have a kabbalah selma, so some people come, it's oneness, think about the greatness of Hashem. So a lot of people complain that I did all that, and I don't see any big, I'm not really very disposed for anything very much. So the answer is that you didn't learn the thing properly, and you didn't take it with a simplicity. But had you learned it properly and taken it with a simplicity, then you would have had everything. And the reason you complain that I do everything but I don't see the results, because you didn't really take it with adequate, exactly straightforward, shut the way it was really meant. You follow? And so I remember once that my mashpia got all sort of at a Fabringen, he got very adequate, outspoken, that somebody came up with this, and he was trying to say that, learning all the profound things in siddhas is not for us nowadays. Nowadays we're different types, because you can see a lot of guys learn these things, nothing happens with them, And he said to me the same. I learn all sorts of things, but I don't see. So my mashpia got very makpid about it. He was very upset with that. He didn't want to let that go. And he said that if you time of that, it's a sign you didn't learn properly, the whole thing, and you didn't really take it in its full, simple, direct meaning to you. And the same with these other people that you say that they're not affected. You have to go back and tell them honestly that they got to relearn. And they got to get the message and take it very simply. And that's the problem. The problem is the way you have learned it and understood it, not that the union itself is not perfect. How come that you make that mistake? How do you get into a very deep message like Siddha says, and you go through what you might call the steps, and then you complain at the end that nothing really happened. Yeah, so the answer is because you have inside a gaiva. You follow? That's a molik. And therefore, the Rebbe writes, he writes in a Maimah, I think it's Tov Reish Pei Dalet, I think it is, or one of the others, a Maimah about a molik. And he writes that it can even be a situation where somebody is so into Inyanim that a divine light will light up his brain, from having understood a certain thing. He said, however, even he can fall into the hands of a molik if he's not careful. Even if a divine light shines into his mind. But that's a very high madrega. That's a sign that he's on a bit of a level, this guy. He said, however, the Rebbe says that if he doesn't take that to the ultimate further step, that the moya has got to move down into your heart and into your daily life, and it remains in the moya, even though it's lighting up the moya. It's illuminating the moya very powerfully. If it doesn't affect the whole of your life, even though he said that's because a molek is mixed in. You follow? And what is a molek mixed in? He doesn't allow you to take it as simply as what it really means. Yeah, it sort of becomes a whole lump. You follow? So we got to be very careful that on one hand we understand deeply, but on the other hand we shouldn't get mixed up in what's called how do you call it, acrobatics of Satan. You know, how do you call it? Oh, wow, this is great, and this leads to that. And in the meantime, you write over, you know, what is the really main message? You know, what did he really mean? We got to live on those two extremities. On the one hand, we've got to understand deeply and appreciate the tremendous pilpul that the Rebbe has given us. On the other hand, we mustn't get lost in the we've got to realize that we've got to bring that down in a simple way, to understand it simply, and bring it down and understand it, per moment. And then, it's a emasakin, you follow? Otherwise, it's written in that moment that even a man of such gift, he can fall into a moment. You follow? And it's I always find that at the end of this Parsha, you know, here we are holding an element, we just learned Ozan Zofer, Soloho, Molly, Shalom Aleichem, Timche Zecha, Molly, Loi Tishkak, don't forget, you know. At this time of the year, that's what you have to be warned. You must be very careful not to fall into a sort of, you know, as the old thing. I remember Rav the old Rav, he used to say, why doesn't he make meetings? He doesn't have a board and he makes meetings. He doesn't have it. So somebody said, you know, about important matters, have a board and make meetings. He said, no, he doesn't know from. He said, what happens at a meeting? Everybody hears what's being said, and everybody talks, and everybody gives an opinion, and everything. And he said, what do they do? He said, they all stand up, and they all shpeyois to Aleinu. They say Aleinu Shabbat, and they spit on the floor, and then they all go home, and say, Shlofen Zechoy. He said, they all go home and they sleep a comfortable night. I would talk about a thing that's the Gea Barum is who spit out to Elena and go home. He said, that's if you make a meeting. But if you don't make a meeting and you just get it done, he said, you don't have the whole problem. He said, but later it's Shlofen. That's what I heard from him. And people complained to him why he didn't have a board, and why didn't he make meetings. That's what he said. And we have to be very careful not to shpeyois, you know, to Elena, and then go home and just forget the whole thing and shlop the chayes, Shalom Aleichem. Have to be very careful. That's the Indian of Kiseita. You got to realize you come from a very high level, and you have a very, very big part in the whole thing. At the Abish Kaviocho, he asked by us what ultimately should be the decision, and that's what the Rebbe said. Because you agree that you're prepared to go out of that world, albeit bring it with you a bit. That you're prepared to go out of the world and come down to this whole, you know, what do you call it, mess down here, this whole Balagandi is they call this world, and make a say down here, according to the Abbas as well, then it's Judaism, Eschad. Magir Eschad. And it's big time. And the Evish is very frum. He looks after his psukim, and it's written that you have to pay in the day. So every time you do something good, you get the tzachar. And we're getting it. And that's the Rebbe's Sikha, and that's the whole Yisrael, so the Gula, it's all part of the tzachar. Good. Okay, guys. So look, everybody should have a good Shabbos. And soon after Shabbos, it'll be the wedding days of the Reveillum and everything. It's all tremendous. And then on, when is it? On Wednesday or Thursday, it'll be Tom Chitzman, the founding, Tesla Be'elon, the founding of Tom Chitzman. The Rebbe once said, even if you only walk through the kitchen of Tom Chitzman and you picked up something from the table and just bit it, a person walks past it, something just picks up. So the Rebbe said, you're already atonement of Tom Chitzman. That's what the Rebbe said. Even you just have to walk through the kitchen and you just honestly picked up something. And basically, as they say in Yiddish, Bist Hashem atonement. How much more so those of the Hashem we learn in Talmud Tzmim. So we gotta get moving, eh? As the old saying, we gotta get cracking. And bring down the Sachar in its perfection. Matan Schorim shall tzadikim liyosef. Take him out. Good.
Chayim.
Chayim.